we're live, and we have a very special guest today for our interview series. Adam is here, and he is here based on a referral from one of my closest friends, Miss Tamara J. Wright. And when she has talked about Adam now for years, because Adam goes out and sees Tamara and her husband out wherever they may be. And this year it happened to be in Texas. And I knew when he's come over the years to visit and how enjoyable the conversations have been. And this year, when Tamara said, I want you to meet my friend Adam, I had already known about him. I knew he'd written a book. I knew that he found himself in a really cool opportunity, and he was a blessing to those he was serving. And I love meeting people when they end up in a situation that's not necessarily like the checklist or like, oh, that looked like it was going to be the normal route. I love that in a person because then they make use of what gifts that they have for those around them. And so when I had the opportunity to meet Adam, our time zone, 3 hours difference, all the things, and to learn what he's doing out on the West Coast and the inspiration and of all the opportunities that we have that we talk a lot about things, he's done it. He took an opportunity, he's used it in such a beautiful way of service, and he's also put pen to paper and actually printed a book. And so many of us have books within us, and it's the action and the steps that it takes to get it to print. And he is that person, and he's working on his 2.0 version, and you get to meet him today. So thank you, Adam. And with that, we'd love to hear more about you, share, how you got to where you are and what you're working on so that we can learn from all these positions and opportunities that you have found yourself in and where you are in LA.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. First of all, thank you very much for having me as part of this interview um, session and series. That's the word I was looking for. And thank you for everything. You have been quite a blessing in my life as far as putting me on a path, on any path, because that's has been an issue of mine for most of my life. Um, I started way back when. Theater was sort of my goal. That and baseball were the things that I thought I was going to do. And I'd had the idea that I would ask Manny Moda if I could bring his number out of retirement, which has never been retired because they're still using his number in Los Angeles. But number 11 was the number I enjoyed and still one of my favorite numbers.
I didn't know
Uh,
that. I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's my number.
no,
Yes. Yes, of all
don't make me
things.
look. Don't make me get my jersey from high school. I still have it. I still
Number
have it.
11. You can't be number one once, but you're twice. Yes. I did.
Ah,
Okay, sorry. Continue. Totally off
nah,
track.
it's great. I had no idea. And then theater and singing when I was much younger. My sister and I used to, put on the 8 tracks, uh, and uh, and sing around the living room different musical theater songs. And she got me initially involved in that, and that sort of were my two ideas of how I was going to pursue my life. And then when college level came, and granted, I probably never worked hard enough as a baseball player. I was lucky that I had natural, um, what's the word, average skills, right? So I didn't ever work beyond that. And those average skills carried me as far as they would carry me. And I guess that was enough at the time. And then I started auditioning. I went to a theater school in Vancouver. My mother had uh, gotten remarried, and there was a theater school that was just starting, Studio 58 in Vancouver. And I auditioned for that and got in. And they had a 2-year program that I was going to try and complete in the 2 years, even though they recommended breaking it up a little bit into 3 years. I was going to barrel on through. And after the third semester, which is the first year, I was recommended that I take some time off because I was bringing bad energy to the school. I went, what? Anyway, but that was me at the time. So I from a uh, community production that was it was a lot of fun. Led to my first professional job, which was in Seattle. And then from there, bounced around a lot. I ended up in Canada for 15 years, musical theater. I was lucky enough to be cast in the Canadian touring version of Cats. which ran for about, well, 2 years as the original company, which I wasn't a part of, and then probably another 2 years and two tours and landing up back in Toronto. Anyway, that's beside the point. So musical theater is my background. Song and dance I love. Was very lucky, and I think that was part of the issue again, is that things sort of happened easily, I suppose. I remember my mother telling me she would be reading, articles about actors from New York, and they'd have to get ketchup and water, and that was their soup. And I was like, really, Mom, is that what you want me to do? To suffer like that? But perhaps it may have been a learning a curve that I could have used. Anyway, so I got job after job that took me where I was going and ended up in Las Vegas, where I was in a production show there when there used to be a Stardust Theater, and now there's no longer a Stardust Theater. But it was a great experience. They were all great experiences. And then I moved to LA thinking, okay, I've got 25 years on a resume. Adam, you're here. We can now make real movies now that you're here. And I sat and looked at that phone, waiting for Steven Spielberg to, and so I sort of I knew more about the show than the business, and I didn't really like the business part of things. And uh, I got complacent. I ended up in a bartending job, which I loved, but years went by because I don't hate the rapport with people, and that's what I had every day as a bartender, and constantly was always thinking, how am I going to get to where I need to go to get where I want to go? But it was easy this way, so I didn't put enough effort forth into finding those other paths. And years went by, and a decade went by, and more time went by. And in that time, I was doing a show with a woman whose mother was the state director of a pageant system called the Cinderella Scholarship Program. And when I moved to LA, she said, "Would you judge my mom's pageant?" And I said, "No," because all I knew was JonBenet Ramsey and didn't want anything to do with that kind of, youthful fake tans and teeth and boas and swimsuits and whatever they call it a glitz pageant. And they're wonderful for what they are. I just this particular pageant is called a natural pageant, and 50% of the score is based on a talent presentation. So
Mm.
they needed people that knew song and dance, which is what most of the girls do. So I said, okay. And the next year I didn't realize I would fall in love with this program, and she became one of my very good friends. And the next year I was emceeing the pageant with her for Arizona, and then a month later for the international pageant, which was in Vegas. And I thought, this is what I'll do for, as long as they'll have me. And then people asked if I could look at their daughters dance. And that's where I started with the coaching. And I realized that I was one guy that was, asked to do something I didn't really know about. But in my opinion, this is where uh, you could have, I don't know, not done better is not the right word. I try to use now more effective, not better, not worse. Could have been more effective. Uh, so anyway, years went by, and I sort of became the interview guy, and people would ask me to, and I was noticing how people don't use and again, as I say this, their brains properly. I don't know psychology. I just can see when we are communicating with one another or telling our stories to one another is how we talk. We talk normally. We don't look for words in the right place. But when you get into an interview or a stressful situation, it seems to me we start looking for the memorized words that we've learned for this particular question that we hope they ask us. And we're not connecting to anything other than looking for those right words to get out of the room successfully, whatever that means. So over the years, I've just noticed that there's a more effective way to get in and out of that room. And that's where I kept pushing it further. I did it. Yes, I was very Maggie, you make such a big deal, but to me, it's just, hey, it's a book. I wrote a book. Oh, no big deal. It's a book. I appreciate that. It just started as notes to myself that turned into a paragraph, and then it was a page, and then I asked my sister if she would help me edit it, and it turned into a little guidebook, which I am very proud of. It needs revising, which again, I've talked about for years. I've talked about pursuing this as my main source of um, income, work. I mean, I'll always want to get back to musical theater, and I still look forward to that Broadway debut. Uh, in the meantime, though, I've just I've let other things in the complacency of my life take over. And all of a sudden, I'm now at a place where I don't want to do that. I find that these are great tools. And I take that back. It took me a long time to say I'm really good at this. But about 5 years ago, I'm good at this. I'm really good at this. And it's, it's more so in just getting information into people's heads to make them look at exactly what they're doing every day, to take that with you everywhere you go. Not trying to change to be the thing you think you're supposed to be when you get into the interview, and act the way you think they want you to, because we don't know how they want us to, because we can't ask them, how do you want me to act when I come in here? And I'll do that and I'll get the job and then I'll go back to being who I am anyway. So why not be who you are in the first place? Because they're going to see that anyway. So for many years, I said, I don't know how, I can't, I'm going to figure it out. And finally, Tamara, who had mentioned you a couple of years in a row, said, I think you should. And I finally did. And I'm very glad to have spent that introductory moment, because it's led to a lot more structure, and a massive amount of support that is just, yeah, I can't even quantify. That's a big word. I'm not sure if it's even the right word, but I can't put it into the right amount because it's huge. And thank you for that. So that's kind of where I've been from and here where I am now. And thank you for getting me in a path that's moving me in the direction that I kept saying I wanted to go, and I am now going.
You
So
are.
thank you.
You are. You're most welcome. And I think that that's the greatest part of recognizing that so many times, as responsible people, as you know, you're very responsible and you know what's possible. And then it's those times where I said it on Saturday. It's like in technology nowadays when it just spins, whether it's our phone or a computer. Back in the day, it was the dial-up where I just kept thinking, and we get that way as humans. And we just, we're thinking all the time, and we need to come alongside somebody who says, "Yeah, I did that. Let's go this way." There's a system here, and you can still be as creative and be yourself, yet it's a support system, just like I went through your interview system. I went through your class. I went through it. And how many times did I say, "Hold on a minute, stop, stop. I need to rethink this," because, and it's still not like rewired 100% yet. Yet I feel like I have these little antennas that go up in conversations because I'm like, "Ooh, that's a good story. That was a really good story," compared to the checklist that sometimes we give in life, which is not something you communicate as well. And until you said that, the way you said it, I was like, dang, how many conversations am I missing a true connection because I'm speaking in a checklist versus the simplicity of a story. And so those gifts that you've been given along the way, being on stage, being in auditions, and all those things that have led to it, which is such a great example of so many times the road is not as we expected at all. And then when
Mm.
somebody comes along where you said, "How long?" "I'm good. I'm good." Like you weren't taking any passengers in your car. And that one time in that one spot, you said, "Okay." And you pushed out the door and said, "Okay, Mags." And I know there's times where you want to boot me out. Like, I know you're like, "I don't like that idea. That's kind of not enjoyable." And that's the greatest part in this journey in life is that we allow ourselves to ask new questions, allow new conversations, so then we receive like never before. And I believe what I have learned from you and I'm learning from you is that there's far more interviews that we have in our lifetime. And that little girl who's working to explain how unique she is, a checklist will make her sound robotic. And how you teach your process, it's something that I love that you have a student, and I can't wait for you to do your interview with her, Amber, because she came back and said it made a difference in her life. She just got a job and she's like almost an adult, I think, or she is an adult. She's older now,
She's an
and she's
adult now. Yeah, this is a
yeah.
couple of years ago, but yes, it made my whole reason. As much as I would love people to, win their pageant, it is about more than the crown. And when we take that with us in there, that it is about more than just getting something out of this. That yeah, that with the fact that she took the time to contact me and let me know that without the work we did, and I started with her when she was 4.5 years old. Over the years, we'd worked on and off, on and off, on and off through her competing in Miss Washington, I believe. And I think she's definitely mid 20s. I should know these things, but it just is all a blur. But yes, that was one of the most incredible things is to have her not recognize that it was helpful, just that it was helpful, and she took the time to tell me. That was pretty special.
I think that's such a great lesson is that so many times we'll think, oh, that teacher, that person, that whatever the situation is, to let them know that really made a difference. Because what you did with her originally was this box, it was for pageants. And she took that information and carried it with her all these years. And then she sat before her job that she wanted to have. She thought, okay, I've learned this here. I need to apply it. And then coming back to tell you, oh, and the crowd goes crazy. Because it's that full circle. It's absolute full circle opportunity. So I love that you allowed yourself to go into an area. And like you said, you questioned, am I the right person? And knowing that that pageant was about talent, which is something you've worked because when you can speak from that experience, from your tour, from all the events that you've done and the multiple interactions that you've had and challenges of I can only imagine how much you had to memorize and apply and present gives you such a different experience. So, questions for you. How do you maintain focus and clarity, especially when you're faced with challenges?
Uh, Maggie Sitar. That's how I.
Yay!
Was that the right answer?
Well,
No, no, that was I think what I mean I'm not embarrassed to say, but you never want to say show your faults. It's just I've rarely ever had a continued focus and the clarity. I can go back to two brothers that took me into their arms when I was in the ninth grade, and why I don't remember if it was Wayne or Alan Berglund said, create um, goals, make goals, but don't set them so high that you can't reach them. Because if you do that, you'll never try to reach it because it's just out of reach. So build it, build it, build it, and then you're told, I've been told, there aren't a lot of new ideas, but the good ones have been around for a long, 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 long time. And so you hear them in different ways over time. And the other one I heard was rather than thinking that your goal is, let's say, to win a Tony Award. That was always been one of my things. Broadway debut, win a Tony Award. What about if you get that Tony Award, then where do you go?
mm,
So someone had given me the idea, make it a tree, and you're just hanging these on your tree. Your tree is endless.
mhm,
So there's always more to go because it's always growing. I just added that, but it's always your tree's always growing. And these are just things you hang on them. So they're whether accomplishments or goals. That's one of the things. And I knew that way back then, and I didn't make lists. I know. I tell people make lists. Do I make lists? No. Or I make them and then I don't do anything with them. Or I put them on my phone. And this whole thing about scratching things off is really I don't know if it's cathartic or not. Again, another word that just sort of pops out. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. But there's something about physically, and I'm told journal, but I don't like journaling. But I'm told if you do, you connect this to the paper and different things happen. And it makes sense and I do it and then yeah, there's no structure. So I don't know if I answered or I went off on a tangent, which I'm sure I did. Tangent police. Um, yeah, there wasn't focus. That's one of the things I was lacking is a focus and a structure. So I don't. I guess I don't do the thing you asked me. How do I?
Well, I think you're in the midst of it, and that's the greatest gift that we have is recognizing how many times in life we get in those spots because we either set the goal too high, we didn't set a goal, so we have the extreme. We set it too high, we didn't set one. And so there's this like messy middle, you know what I mean? Where we're just like on the wheel and we're like, okay, I'm moving, but am I really moving? Am I even on the right wheel? And so many times in life, I think this is great, and I'm glad you're sharing because there's someone who I hope will watch this and go, oh, I'm not the only one. Because if you haven't been on the wrong wheel or you haven't been in that stuck frozen zone, you haven't experienced life yet. Because that being stuck is that spot of like, okay, something you decided to say, okay, Tam, fine, fine, fine. I will talk to your friend. So we talked, and there was a process involved in it, and there was a willingness, and it wasn't overnight. You weren't like, yeah, let's go. It was a process to experience, and that's what happens in life when we realize I might need to tweak something. And that process does not feel great or comfortable naturally. And what's bigger than that is the world has made us believe we're going to do it all by ourselves and it's going to be great. Baloney. That is untrue. We're better together. There's opportunity, there's joy and excitement. And because I stepped into a situation that was out of my comfort zone and I came to you and said, I believe what you're doing could support me. And it was literally a full circle moment to be able to experience your framework, your book, your hands-on skills. And I still remember driving. I don't recommend it when you're coaching. Do a situation where you're like this. It's much more enjoyable. You can take notes. That day did not turn out, and Adam was graceful with me. But I remember driving thinking, I need a minute because I had made this 10 times harder than I needed to. And because of all of your experience up to that point, that you could see a better, more organized way. And now, literally, when people are talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, they did this, they did that. Oh, look at that. That's there. And then I'm like, oh, they made me do that too. Oh, wow, look at that. Like now I'm taking that speaker presenter training and I'm taking your framework and going, oh, yeah, okay, oh, yeah. And then seeing how I can do that better myself. And it was all because you ended up somewhere to say, I'm going to take from this, I'm going to take from this and organize it and then be able to share it out. And that's the greatest gift. That's everything that we have to do in this life. But if we don't ask for help, we don't choose in, you ask your sister to edit it. You know what I mean? You allowed someone to come in and edit you, which is kind of an audit and can feel very uncomfortable, not lovely when I'm sure she said, oh, that's really good and that's terrible. You know what I mean? Because there's somewhere to go. And then you printed it. And now you're working on the second version because you are allowing yourself. And so that realness and raw that I think sometimes I joke and say, oh, yeah, that was not on Facebook and that wasn't on Facebook. Like it wasn't on, the whole process wasn't on social media, but th people think that it was. No, you just saw little pieces. Sometimes you see a highlight reel, sometimes you hear the raw, but only pieces of it. And that's the part that gets missed because then it's being able to say, all right, no, 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 there was like 10 steps. I mean, to print your book, it it was a smooth process because you were allowing it to go in order of what you were taking in, which is beautiful because it wasn't something you forced. And that's why when we
Hmm.
all ask you, like, how did you, you're like, oh, I'm not sure. You allowed it. You allowed it to come and you did the next step and then the next step, and then the next step. You didn't like hold the presses, stop breathing, and stop eating to do it, which is what some people are extreme, right? They're like, oh my gosh, everything needs to stop because I have to do this one thing. No, keep doing life, keep doing what you need to do. Ask for those around you for some support and encouragement. And then when you do that together, there's much more joy and there's much more excitement. And I'm sure you connected you with your sister in a whole nother level that you had never connected before because she had skills and gifts. She could see things differently. And being a sibling to you, that she can also see things and be like, oh, Adam, you've been great this whole time. And I'm sure there are parts where you're like, sister, what? You know what I mean? Because you allowed yourself to open up to new experiences, which I think is fantastic. I love it. Um,
I wonder if the experiences would have been a little different if it wasn't my sister, because you get into um, conversations
yeah.
because they know you so well, or because they'll say something, and because it's your sibling that's saying it, it's a little more prickly,
Yes, we
as
talk
you
about that a
as
lot.
you told me.
But what I love to say is that what's super significant is you're still talking to your sister.
That's true. That is
There's
true.
some people will say, I did this thing, never again, and then separation happens. You know what I mean? And so that I'd say that that's even more beautiful to know that you withstood any kind of storm that did come through the pages, the
Yeah,
prickly
that's
moments, those times where you're like, didn't really want to hear that, but you heard it, printed it, and you were, on your way. So that makes a bigger difference. I love it. So, what is one piece of advice for people stepping into their power, interviewing, comfort zones, businesses, when they're striving for their best selves? What advice would you give someone?
one piece. Well, I don't, you know me, I probably can't just do one piece, but I'll start with this. If you're going to be with someone, be with them, whether it's 10 seconds, whether it's a minute and a half, whether it's 10 minutes, be with them for those moments and then move on to whatever's next. So often I find that people are talking and they're looking at me part of the time, and the rest of the time you can tell that there's and maybe that's the a point where I should go, where I should end the conversation rather than trying to push it forward. However, the piece of advice I would give is that if you're going to be with someone, be with them for those moments, whether it's the person in the grocery store that is giving you your change or asking you a question about bags or whatever it is, be with them for those moments
Mhm.
rather than make it as if it's um, so common that I don't need to even pay it. Like driving, what time the other day I was driving, I thought, oh, whoa, how did I get here? I'm just, it's so autopilot. Then that's, I think, how we go through a lot of times in life on autopilot. Um, you said something a little earlier that I was doing life, and then all of a sudden, as you said that, I thought I spent a lot of time, I don't know, with life just doing me.
Mhm.
I just was letting whatever happened happen. Not that I didn't have choices and that I couldn't take control, I just didn't. And that's where, a decade goes by and you go, what? But I think, yeah, doing life or life doing you, or it's just for me, it was the other. I wasn't doing anything. I just, all of a sudden it was one day, another day, and it was just wrote, 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 wrote. Um,
I
and
think that's a really good point because so many times people will say, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that next.
Right.
Well, after we do that thing, and then there's this, like you said, it just keeps getting pushed out and pushed out. And so that question of what will it take to do one thing today? I always think of the statues that they make that out of whatever, and they chisel away that big giant rock or what it's an ice sculpture, and they're just chiseling away. And then all of a sudden there's this masterpiece that you're like, what? Well, it was just one little, it was little bits at a time, and then it just started to take form. And then it's just absolutely breathtaking. Yet it's those little steps and those little pieces. And so that journey and that road that we decide sometimes it's the dirt road or it's a brick and it's still bumpy as heck, still paved in one way or another. Yet that journey, and it's so much more enjoyable to allow people to come on that journey for the reason, the season, or lifetime. I like to pick I like to think I get to pick those people and I think how long they stay. And the truth is, it's not. It's not up to us at all. And then we recognize those opportunities and how great they are and were. And now you get to step into this position and opportunity to share your gifts and realizing what a difference it makes in that communication, whether it's an interview. an inner view or just simple communication. I mean, that's the part that's really changed in your step number four of how we talk. And I won't go into all the details so that you can reach out to Adam. Um, Yet part of his framework was, a really descriptive question on number four. And I was like, all these years, I never connected how he asked that simple question and what a difference it makes so that when you do have those times with someone, they're so much more memorable because you're asking something like and it's like that, like you said, you were talking and then you had this thought there, like it's increased in your brain and it's new and it's a memory, and that also brings that opportunity. You're like, I'm going to remember this time with this person because you did a visual in your brain. And so his framework is fantastic. And before we finish, is there anything that you feel that you want to share that gained your heart that you want people to know um, about you or what you're working on or how to find you?
Oh, yeah. I first of all, I appreciate you taking the time and letting me be a part of your circle. And I know that I can't say it enough. And it sometimes it sounds like it's, you're trying to, because you're giving me this opportunity, I don't want to give you back an opportunity. However, it's your support is different than many people. It's genuine. And maybe it's not with every, we have different people that we connect with differently. Not everyone's for everyone. I understand that. I'm lucky enough that you are for me. And so that's the first thing I'd like to say is thank you for having my back. Um,
Absolutely.
and um, what what I'm working on, I want to get this information out. I just think it's so simple and it is so worthwhile. In That's where it wasn't just for pageant interviews. I realize now it's any interview, it's any communication,
Hmm.
any piece. If you put all five of the pieces together, it creates what I've said recently. You can answer any question, anytime, anywhere,
Hmm.
without having to prepare anything, unless of
Without
course
sweat.
it's some
Without sweat. I mean,
really.
that's the truest part is that, you know, that sweat that we, men or women, I believe, in age, doesn't matter on the age where we get so worked up and that anxiety and all that junk that starts to hit us. This framework gives you that calmness to be able to deliver in such a way without all those extras. And that, again, like you said, does apply to everything, everything.
That's it. And I always am very careful that I want to make sure that I'm giving the information 100% honestly. And so the only thing I would add to that is if you were going for an interview and you don't know what it is you're talking about, this is not going to work because you can't answer any question without having the information. So if you're going to go for a job to be a jet engine builder and you know nothing about building jet engines, I would learn a little something before I went in for that interview. Other than that, it's you can answer any question, anytime, anywhere, and again, it doesn't happen like that. It's a skill that you practice, but it's immediately understood. I believe you went through it. I try and explain it, and that's the thing. Been one of my biggest difficulties is how do I sell this? How do I explain this? Because most of my success and growth has been through word of mouth, where somebody has actually watched me go through this couple of hours with someone. Or one of the directors that I worked with, she watched 8 hours, four in a row. And at the end, I was like, oh, she says, that's really great. That's great. I don't know how to explain it, but it's really great. Welcome to my world. I don't know how to explain it either. I just know it works. So um, that's what you're helping with is figuring out how to market it. And that's something that I've always wanted to be able to do. And that's the sort of the path that I feel have a little more. My bumpy road that you talked about is now smoothing out and getting paved.
It is.
So, so
And,
that that's
and that
that's
rear
that.
view mirror is important to
Oh,
recognize. It's always there. It's always there to see what's behind us, but it's small compared to the full vision of what's before us.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it. I was going to say that was one of my biggest lessons that I learned. And as I heard you say that, I realized how it could be misconstrued in the fact that what you're looking at in the rearview mirror isn't small. The rearview mirror itself is small, and we spend so much time looking at everything through that small little lens, and we then miss that windshield in front of us, which when you pointed that out to me, I was so excited because the fact that you've made me say, and it's still hard to say, the past is perfect. uh,
Oh, it's so
they can't,
painful.
you can't, you can't get here without your perfect past because you can't change it.
No,
You can learn. Tamara told me that the other day. We had a lovely conversation. You can learn from it. I
no.
agree. We can. We can't change. We can't make it any different. And the only thing I can share with everyone is whatever puts you here, whatever situation you find yourself in, you I'll make it about me because I don't know about any other people's lives, but about me, I put myself here. If I don't have something or lack somewhere that I compare myself to someone else and I should be here and I should do that, I made the choices.
Hmm.
So that's the one of the things that I can finally, it's not comfortable, but it's the truth. I made the choices to put me here. So let's move on. Carry on, McDuff.
Let's go. Let's go. And that it's yeah, it definitely recognizing that things happen to us and yet really they happen for us. Because when we talk too long about what happened to us and those stories are of what's behind us and we can't change it. No one has a, crystal ball or a magic wand. Some of us would really like, yeah, that would be a really great day. I'd like to reverse that situation. And then it's more about the attitude in which we move forward. And even as slow as it might be, it's so much more enjoyable just to have more scenery and more opportunity and more places in our car for people to come along our journey and be able to join us.
And you just sort of gave a little hint, which I'm very glad you said, because those stories that are in our past are what make it so easy to create the connection and the communication uh, with the person in front of us.
Yeah,
So,
that lasting what I'm realizing here, because I'm connecting that spot, it's a lasting impression. And what we want to be is we want to be memorable. And that's what you've given the opportunity through pageants to be able to have these little girls who are memorable for the fact that they are doing something that most may never ever choose is to speak in public, to be on stage, especially at their age. And yet our stage is everywhere in life. It's across the desk from our boss or the manager or the person who's there to do a review with us. And the more confident we are within ourselves and the opportunity to make a lasting impression, be memorable, that connection can make all the difference in the rest of the day and the next days because then we're better than we were yesterday, not better than anyone else, only better than ourselves. So, I believe you have something special and unique. I believe that many need to know it. And I believe that support system that you're creating for the pageants is beautiful. And that's going to extend throughout their families because there's not a mom around that doesn't have an opportunity to commute better for herself and for her business if she has one. The parent, dad, or aunts, or you know what I mean? There's just such a succession there. And that, I mean, that opportunity, like I'm still working on the story part. Like that one's cutting out some of it, not going too long, and like really giving that a spot to be memorable and having people engage where they want to lean in and be like, dang, that was a great story. And we all laugh or we all cry or, like that, those moments in time that we can freeze time and say, I remember that. That made me laugh. That made me feel something different than I showed up as. So I thank you. I feel so grateful to have met you. And what I say to Adam all the time is he's going to be on the Today Show, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait because that vision that I see, because like you said, the way you came into this was not, it wasn't this normal route, which I think great brings in the significance of your willingness to allow opportunities and choosing to be open. And so many times we block blessings when we're closed to opportunities. And I believe you opened that, and we're just getting started. So,
And I thank you for that. And part of that um, uh, structure you've given me, I will share. If you've seen Maggie, or you've worked with her, you'll notice she does this a lot, and she'll always talk about the stuff in the middle. And I just want to say she will take you from the gap to the clap.
to the
The,
clap.
the applause, the
I
applause
do.
clap, right? It's like
Yes.
that's what we're working towards. But we've got all this gap in the middle, and that's what I coined for Maggie. She'll take you from the gap to the clap,
I
the
do.
applause, the
Yep.
joy that the joy in your life that you can receive by bringing what you have, the gift you have to others.
Yes. Couldn't say it better myself. And I love that you picked up on that because it's authentic. And I believe we are looking for a different kind of recognition nowadays. It's different. You know what I mean? Those moments where, again, that lasting impression of what you do through your steps gives that opportunity to close it. And yeah, so much more fun together. So thank you, Adam, for your precious time. And for anyone who's watching, when you see this video, you'll find all of his information below where you can contact him and be able to have a discovery call, get the details of what you need for where you are right now, and make those adjustments with his support. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Maggie.